You are now listening to the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, the podcast for those who want to advance into the business of immortality through authorship, the Going North podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer and author of the best-selling book, Stay the Course, Daily Performer's 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success, Dom Brightman. And you're going to be getting some goodies today from the guest that's up next. And today on the super special awesome podcast known as the Going North podcast, we got another awesome fabulous human today, folks. That's right, thanks to my good buddy Mr. Eminem, Mr. Mickey Mickelson, all the way out from the land of Canada. And for those listening to me long enough, they're probably like, man, Dom, I'm gonna start calling Canada Canada with you keep calling it Canada. But that's beside the point, because I got another wonderful guest today, thanks to my buddy Mr. Eminem, baby. That's right. You know he doesn't rap, and you know he's not a candy bar, but he does have wonderful clients that really have awesome work, because today's author is one of those special humans. Because today's author in particular, she's also a Canadian like Mickey, all the way out in Kelowna, BC, Canada, folks. That's right, with a lovely husband who is charitable and 3 demanding cats, so all the meows. And what makes it even better and not butter is that her poetry and nonfiction have appeared in the Lyric Opera House as well as Storyteller, Eastern Iowa Review, the English Bay Review, and the Brevity Blog. And she now has a super special, awesome memoir of her own called Paradise Road. So let's give it up for the one, the only MK Ultra herself, Miss Marilyn Kriete. How you doing today, Marilyn?
Great. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's always good to have some folks who put some pen to paper and finally press finish, and it's like, yeah. So how does it feel?
For sure.
How does it feel? It feels sure, I'm guessing. Now that you finally hit the finish button.
It feels pretty amazing because this was a book that I carried inside me for decades. I knew I was going to write it one day when I had time, and my life was incredibly busy, and I really didn't have time to do anything beyond live what I was, doing what I was doing. And finally, in the last 5 years, I had time to sit down and write it and have it published. And so, yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's been out about 3 months now.
Woohoo! Congratulations!
Yeah, published through Lucid House Publishing in Atlanta, Georgia.
The land of the giant tasty peaches. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. With the extra juice. That's right. Yes, indeed. Well, speaking of juice, I'm pretty sure I forgot all the juicy details about your lovely, marvelous life. So mind filling in any cavities or gaps I may have missed about the marvelous Marilyn herself?
Well, there's a lot to tell because this is just the first memoir. I've got 3 more coming because my life has been pretty colorful and pretty unusual. But this first book, Paradise Road, covers my first 24 years from the time I was as a child and had a very, I would say, highly challenging relationship with my mother, which led me to run away from home when I was 14 and ended up in juvie for a while, and then ended up in a girls' home for troubled girls or pre-delinquents or whatever you want to call us. I was there for a couple of years. It was run by Catholic nuns. And then I was out on my own and independent at the age of 16. Was a hippie, or an aspiring hippie. Grew up in the, this is taking place in the late 60s, early 70s. And so basically tells that story. And sort of the heart of the story is about an amazing relationship that I had with a man named Jack, who was the older guy next door for a while. We became friends, and then we fell in love, and he was kind of like my everything. He was an amazing person. And so the two of us set off on this bicycle trip from Canada. We were going to ride down to South America and stay there for a while and work on our Spanish, and had dreams going from there. And so we started off on this bicycle trip, traveled through across Canada and through the eastern United States, and got as far as Tennessee. And then he was struck down by cancer and ended up dying within a few months later. So my book tells that story and how after he died, I had no plan B. I had no other life going for me, and I had no idea what to do next. And I discovered a road map that he'd kept from a previous bike trip he'd taken a few years before, where he'd been cycling from his hometown in Phoenix, Arizona, up to Edmonton, Alberta, where I lived. And he had gotten as far as Colorado. And that time he got hepatitis and had to stop his trip. So I found this map and I thought, what I'll do is I'll get on my bicycle and I'll finish that trip for him. And so I got on my bike just 10 days after he died, started riding, got wildly off course, never made it to Colorado, ended up cycling all over the States for a couple of years off and on. And yeah, and then I won't give away the ending of the book, but that's basically my story, is this kind of odyssey I went on to find answers and meaning and purpose and direction in my life after everything was lost. So that's my story.
And she's sticking to it like peanut butter and jelly. Oh, that's what I'm talking
Mhm.
about, indeed. My goodness, only the first 24 years of your life, man.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
goodness, like
yeah,
wow, that's something.
yeah, yeah. And there's a lot more stories in there I didn't tell you, so it's pretty packed. Every chapter is full of stories. So yeah.
Wow.
So
And if I'm not mistaken, this I guess it'll be a trilogy, right? 2 more to go or 3 more to go?
what? 3 more books? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the next one actually picks up 20 years later, and then the following ones are describe the time that I spent living in India and Africa. So yeah, so they're all going to be pretty different, but they're all part of the same life story.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. So my goodness, definitely a living woman of many interests who's living an interesting life, because a lot of folks nowadays wish they probably had enough content to make a whole book by the age of 24. It's like, I've done so much. I'm only going up to age 24 here. It's like, so what if I'm like 20 years later and I'm like 33? It's okay. I'll just give them like the first part of it. I'll give
Yeah,
them a
yeah.
quarter minus
Give them a
one.
tease, and they'll want more. Yeah, so, yeah, yeah. So it's been getting amazing feedback, amazing reviews from readers. Yeah, the book won a indie book award last month, in a couple of different categories, and yeah, so it's getting some traction, and seems like it's kind of a hit across the board. I've had readers as young as 17 and as old as 85, and men and women, and everybody just seems to really get into it and enjoy the story. So I'm really happy about that. It's hitting people's hearts, and yeah.
Well, congratulations. There we go.
Thank
That's
you.
what I'm talking about. Now you get to have some more medals around your neck now. That's right. Some more
Yeah,
jewelry.
well, yeah. What I want are more readers, but medals are nice too. But yeah, I'm looking for readers all the time. So yeah,
Hey, I mean, if you hit them hard enough and put a book on the top of their face after you hit them with the medal, you get more readers that way, right?
I guess that's one way to do it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe a little time intensive, but hey, it could work.
Hmm.
I'll just mess with you. Don't do that. Oh my goodness. My goodness. So with interesting, I guess, childhood where basically I had to run away from a situation at the age of 16. My goodness. And
Yeah, I ran
then,
away at 14 actually. Yeah,
oh,
14.
14. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually ran away. I talked my best friend into going with me, and the two of us ran almost 1,000 miles. We ran away across to Vancouver from Alberta, and lived on the hippie street scene for several weeks before we got picked up by the local police and thrown into juvie for being runaways. So
Ah.
yeah, so yeah.
Oh, okay, good. It wasn't in the middle of like hugging a tree and singing songs, was it? When the cops finally got you?
No, I don't want to give away the story, but yeah, it was in the middle of an amazing day that kind of it just started off great. Actually, we had found a couple guys that were going to give us a ride to California because we wanted to go down there and figured we'd be muses for some famous rock band. And ended up getting scammed by these two guys. And then in our desperation, we reached out to my best friend, one of her family friends, and he said he'd help us out, but he basically kind of just turned us over. So yeah, it was a rough day. So, but makes a good story.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So my goodness, so with this memoir and taking these past 5 years to write especially enough content for 4 books. So what's the process like from start to finish? Like what helps you to really get all these stories down? Was it just you just starting to write one day and you just periodically went back? Was it like a journal that you kept or a bunch of journals? Like how was that process?
Well, yeah, good question. I didn't have anything to work from. I didn't have any. I've moved around so much in my life. I've lived in 4 continents and 16 cities, and I've moved 56, maybe 50 or 60 times. So I didn't have journals or diaries or even photographs to work from. It was all from memory. And before I actually started writing the book, I spent a few years just writing, just practice writing. I was writing a lot of poetry and writing shorter pieces and just honing my skills. Because I don't believe you can just pick up a pen and be a great writer without practice any more than you can pick up a guitar or an instrument and be a great musician without putting in the time and the practice and the learning and so on. So I did that for quite a long time. And then one day I woke up and I just felt like I'm ready to start writing today. And then it just started to kind of really flow because I think I'd put a lot of thought and time into it. I'd written some poetry about some of it. And yeah, it just started coming back. And I was amazed at how much I did actually remember once I started writing. A lot of detail came back to me, a lot of moments. I'm not great at remembering conversations. I remember the kind of the gist of what was said, and I can remember, if somebody says something really strong and pithy, I'll remember that statement. But I don't remember conversations verbatim that I had 30, 40 years ago, or 50 years ago in some cases. So, one thing I was worried about is I know some memoirists actually will try to recreate conversations, and I didn't do a lot of that in my book. I just included dialogue where I felt like I remembered the gist of what was said and it was important to use it. But it seemed to work. So yeah, so I sat down, I gave myself a word count goal every day to write 2,000 words because I find sometimes when you're writing, you get off to a great start and then you kind of hit a wall after, I don't know, half an hour, you think, oh, I'm kind of done. And if you don't have a word count or a goal, it's easy to just walk away and say, well, I'll get back to it later. But with that 2,000 word count, I get up, make a cup of tea or whatever, come back and say, okay, I'm going to keep going until I hit those 2,000 words. And so I did that pretty much every day that I was writing the first one. And then, of course, that's just the starting point because then you've just got a rough draft and then all the editing fun begins. So that's a process as well. And a piece of advice that I remember reading from Stephen King's book on writing was that you should always, when you finish a first draft, put it in a drawer and lock the drawer and don't look at it. He suggests about 6 months rest period and then come back at it with fresh eyes. So I did that. Didn't have a literal drawer, but I put it away. I actually started working on my second memoir and went back to the first draft and started doing my edits and stuff and worked on that for, can't remember the timeline on that, but probably just as long, editing and just making it as good as I could get it to be. So that was pretty much the process of the first one. So yeah, I didn't have to do a lot of research. I did some research. I did, what I found was, again, I didn't have any notes or photos or anything from all the traveling I did. But I found I have a pretty good memory for place names. And so when I get out a map and I look at little towns and places that I rode through, that'll jog my memory and I could reconstruct a lot of my travels from that. And so I did research with road maps and trying to remember, what little places look like. And again, I'm sure they're nothing like they were back then, but all I needed to do was recreate the memories. So yeah, so that was it. It was really actually really enjoyable to do that, to spend that time revisiting my past and to kind of, yeah, just kind of relive it and see how awesome a lot of it was, even though I did a lot of stupid, crazy things. Um, God really protected me from a lot of terrible things that could have happened. And yeah, it was kind of great to just see the whole journey and see it as a piece. So I was very excited to finish it and then share it with the world.
Ah, sweet. That's what I'm talking about right there. That's what I'm talking about indeed. Yes, indeed. It seems to be a trend amongst a lot of the folks that come on the show. Consistency is really one of those elite performance habits that helps you to get your book finished because, my goodness, 2,000 words a day and really just getting all that content out of you. Then, of course, going into a little metaphorical hibernation by
Yeah,
putting
yeah,
that rough draft in a drawer or
yeah,
some other safekeeping place for six
yeah,
months or so.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, and then actually the longer process was looking at searching to get it published because I was really determined not to self-publish. I really wanted to get it traditionally published, find a publisher, get an agent. So then I began the process of querying. I don't know if you know much about that, but that's a long, slow, painful process. You know, researching agents and trying to find the right ones and crafting a query letter and recrafting it and trying to make it just right. You've got to kind of grab their attention and interest in the first few sentences. I know that most agents have big slush piles and they're looking for reasons to say no and get rid of their slush piles. And so, yeah, so querying that probably went on off and on for a couple of years. And I'd send out a batch and then I'd kind of try to forget about it and focus on other writing. And so that probably took longer than even writing the book did.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because Mickey does great work indeed. It does great work indeed, taking care of
Mm-hmm.
his clients. Focuses on multiple areas for multiple areas of publicities. It's not just getting you on podcasts, getting you on his radio show. It's like magazines,
Yeah,
like awards, book award submissions. It's like actual stuff out there, like getting
yeah,
some more
yeah,
credibility for you. So
yeah.
definitely,
Now, I didn't have Mickey in my life until after the book was published. So it was actually my publisher that discovered Mickey and got him on board. And that was a great, great gift. It's been great to have him on working for me and helping promote my work. And yeah, and it was great to find out that he's a Canadian, actually from the same city I'm from, and still lives in Canada. And that was kind of a cool connection as well. So
yeah,
yeah,
probably cooler than two cucumbers, I bet.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So with all this wonderful goodness in probably gonna backtrack a bit to the traveling. So my goodness, so with basically that experience of running away and then being brought back, basically, do you believe that that really what sparked the bug in you to want to travel the globe? Because that's probably one of the biggest goals that a lot of people put have on their bucket
Travel
list to
the globe.
travel the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. I think I always wanted to. I remember when I was a kid, I grew up in Edmonton, which is a very, at that time, pretty monocultural city. Uh, the only Black people I ever saw were African exchange students, maybe one or two a year, down by the university. At that time, it's changed a lot since then. And that's the city and culture I grew up in. But I remember discovering I used to sneak away when I was a kid and go downtown, walk downtown, which was a few miles away, and wander through stores and different areas and just try to find new worlds. And I remember discovering Edmonton's first India export store. And I just export and import, I guess. And I just fell in love with everything in the store, the incense and the embroidery and the jewelries and the carvings. And there was this beautiful little Indian doll that I started coveting. And that really planted a seed in me that I really wanted to go to India one day, and which was another dream that came true years later. I remember also being probably around the same age and for a while having a dream to go to Africa and be a missionary. And that came true again years later down the road. So I think I kind of was born with itchy feet. Even as a young kid, I was always sneaking away from the house and going off and exploring. Um, and yeah, I kind of get bored easily with the familiar, and I love discovering a new place, a new culture, new food, new smells. So that's kind of part of me. And the bike travel definitely broadened my horizons in a great way as well. And I think that with the bicycle travel, that was, the realization that I could travel on my own steam, my own energy, and go all across the country and I basically lived for $5 a day. Was my budget, travel budget. And yeah, all that was very empowering. And I think it gave me a lot of courage and a lot of confidence to try new things as I got older as well. So yeah, I feel really, really fortunate in how God made me and what I've been able to do in my life, because I know a lot of people don't get that opportunity.
Oh yeah, definitely say that again, indeed.
Mm.
So with all your travels, is there a part of the world that you haven't visited yet that you would love to travel to?
Well, ironically, the place we were headed to on that bike trip, South America, I never made it. I still have never been to South America. So yeah, I would love to get there someday. Unfortunately, right now my life circumstances are kind of constrained, not only with COVID, but just financially, I don't have money to go anywhere. But yeah, I would love to go to South America one day. I'd love to see Asia. But I think more than anything, I'd love to go back to some of the places that I lived before and had to leave suddenly, and have never been able to go back and see my old friends again. So I would probably first book a ticket to Nigeria, where we lived for a few years, and South Africa and India, go back and see some places and people that are there. And even Washington, D.C., I lived there for a while, and North Virginia, Norfolk, Philadelphia. So lots of places in the States I'd love to go back as well. So yeah, I just need an unlimited ticket to everywhere.
Oh yeah, DC for the site, sure. The traffic stay far, far away. Keep.
Yeah, yeah. Something funny though. We moved from South Africa to DC. We were asked to move there we were working for an organization, and they asked us to move there. And I knew nothing about DC, being a Canadian. And I was kind of shocked that there were so many tourists there. It never occurred to me that people would actually go there to see the city. But yeah, a lot of tourists go to DC every year. We landed in Foggy Bottom. I'm sure you know where that is. We were just 2 blocks from the Watergate Hotel, and used to go for morning jogs around the reflecting pool. And yeah, that was my experience of DC.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's right. So always having itchy feet and basically having itchy hands to write some wonderful
Mm-hmm.
stories and jotting them down to share with the masses. So what would be next on your plate since you got these other 3 books you're planning on releasing? Is there something else you're planning on doing along with this wonderful tour you're on of promoting Paradise Road?
Well, the books aren't this. Yeah, I've got the next book is pretty much written, but there'll definitely be more edits as I work with my editor and publisher on that. That's scheduled for release early next year, and then there'll be, of course, promotion and all that with that book. And then the 2 more to follow that will probably come, I'm thinking 6 to 10 month intervals later, maybe, or I don't know exactly, and beyond that, I'm not sure what's, it really depends what fortune comes my way, I guess. And yeah, what turns up next. So I'm pretty happy to finally be an author though, because that was something that even as a kid, I dreamed of writing. And yeah, so it's just really cool to be able to look back and see dreams being realized that sometimes took a long, long time to come to pass, but they really did. So Yeah. So that's kind of a theme of a lot of my books, is just sort of, longings and dreams, I guess, and losses and gains.
That's right. All kinds of gains, indeed. All kinds of gains. Man, love these neighbors. All kinds of gains. So now that you 1 out of 4 in with all the travels under your book, any advice for those looking to not only write their own memoir, but also publish and promote it?
Yeah, well, I would say put in the practice time, definitely. Don't just dash off and write a book and expect it to be amazing unless you've already been, doing some serious writing. I would strongly recommend joining a writing group or critique group and getting feedback. I think, I learned a lot from that, and I realized when I started going to these critique groups that pretty much all starting new writers make a lot of the same glaring mistakes without realizing it. And these critique groups can really help you kind of nip those in the bud and get them out of your writing, so you're not bogged down with these things that give you away as an amateur. So yeah, I would say, join a writing group, go to writers' conferences if you can, read widely, read other memoirs and see what works and what doesn't. Start taking notes and give yourself time to write. Don't rush the process. The world can wait while you make it the best it can be. As far as publishing, like, I think if people want to self-publish, I think it's great. That just wasn't what I dreamed of, but I have writer friends that are authors that are self-published and are doing really well. And most of them, they kind of have that extra gift of knowing how to self-promote. I don't feel like I've got that gene or that gift, and I'm not that great with technology and social media, my generation. So, but if you've got that going for you, I think you can do a lot on your own without having to depend on traditional publishers and agents and so on. But yeah, I think the main thing is, focus on producing a work of quality that will stand the test of time, and not just something that you can say, "Oh, I published a book, and now what's next?" Because it's not hard to self-publish a book these days, but I think it's much harder to make an impact and reach an audience and generate good reviews and get that traction. So that only comes from hard work and really learning the craft.
Oh yeah, that's right. Learning the craft, indeed. That's right. That's right, indeed. Some rock solid advice right there, indeed. And especially the fact that we all really need each other to really succeed, like getting in writers groups with more experienced writers to nip those early mistakes in the bud. It's like, all right, cool. All right, good.
Hmm.
Like this is a lot
Plus, the
better than
writers groups
English
are
class.
really fun. They actually are really one of the things I probably the thing I've missed the most, apart from seeing family and friends, obviously, but um, I really missed my in-person writers groups over this COVID time, and we're still not meeting in person here in BC. Just things are just opening up again slowly, but I really miss those groups. It's just really fun to be with other writers and listen to what they're doing and share ideas and help each other out and encourage each other. And yeah, they're really it's great opportunity to learn and grow and yeah, meet people you wouldn't otherwise meet. So yeah, writers groups rock, most of them.
Yeah, that's right. With all the boulders. That's right. They
Mhm.
rock indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Sweet. So as you're on this wonderful tour of talking about the Paradise Road, this little road of paradise you're on, is there a question that you wish you'd be asked more often when you're on the metaphorical hot seat?
Oh, that is a good question. What question do I wish I would be asked? I had one online interviewer that asked me to come up with 10 random facts about my book, and that was kind of fun to think of. So, yeah, I have some of those if you want to hear that. Some of those are.
Or
Want
go
to hear some 10
ahead.
random facts? I kind of
Sweet.
shared one of them already. The first one is that I wrote the whole memoir without any notes or journals or letters or diaries or photos, but I was amazed at how much came flooding back. Also, the cover of my book, it's a picture of me riding my bike on a lonely highway, all loaded up with all my camping gear. And again, as I lost, keepsakes over the years, I didn't even know that I had this picture. I thought I had no pictures from my past around anymore. And just a few months after I finished my first draft, my husband was going through an old box of his papers, and he came up with this little slide, a color photo slide, and it was this picture of me on my bicycle, taken by one of my riding companions that I had when I was riding across the desert. And it turned out to be the perfect photo to use for the cover. But that was kind of cool, just coming across that years later, just when I needed it. And then there were a few other black and white photos I found that we included on the back cover of the book. So that was kind of cool. Another random fact, this probably happens with a lot of writers as they write, but I changed the title so many times as I was writing the book, probably 5 or 6 different titles. And none of them were really quite making it. And then one day, Paradise Road just kind of came to me. Paradise ties in with the name of a little town where some significant things happened on my journey. And so it seemed to really fit. So that was kind of a cool day when the name came to me. Another random fact is when I actually did send my manuscript into my final editor, she virtually didn't change anything except a few word choices, a couple things. She was like, "Oh, this Canadian spelling, or is this Canadian word, or whatever." But other than that, she really didn't change anything, and which I was quite delighted because I'd heard horror stories about the editing process from some writers and how you just think it's slice and dice and you're almost starting from scratch again, and that didn't happen with my first book. So hopefully that pattern can continue. Another random fact, I remember when the memoir Wild came out several years back. Have you heard of? Yeah, that became a movie with Reese Witherspoon. But I remember coming across it in a bookstore before it had really got a lot of publicity. It was just sitting there, and I picked it up, and as soon as I saw kind of what it was about this woman who had a serious loss in her life and had set off on this solo journey to, figure out herself and her life and what to do next, I thought, darn it, she wrote my book before I did. And I was so dying to read it, but I didn't want to be influenced by it. So I just put it back on the table, and I said, when I finish my book, which wasn't until years later, I will go back and I'll buy Wild and I'll read it then. So I did, and I loved it, and I realized it was really nothing at all like my book. So it's kind of similar outline, but very different journey and very different person doing the journey and different insights and different outcomes. But yeah. Yeah, a lot of another thing that comes up with memoir a lot is, do you use real names, or do you change names to protect the people you're writing about? And in my memoir, I only changed 2 names. I felt I should probably not reveal the identity of 2 people, but it seemed to be fine. I haven't got any pushback from anybody. Nobody's written back and told me they're mad about what I said about them. So I tried to be kind. And and I do really have mostly really just generous thoughts and feelings about the people that touched my life, whatever stage. Yeah, one more I'll just share is that, a lot of people ask me kind of about, what about your mom? Because she's the one person, obviously can't hide her identity too much. And she doesn't come across that great in the book, but I had to write truthfully about what our relationship was like. And she was kind of a harsh person to grow up with. And so I think one of the barriers I felt for years about writing was, what's my mom going to think about this? I tried really hard to keep the peace with her, and it was kind of a tenuous peace, and I didn't want to do anything that would, rock the boat again. But she started developing Alzheimer's around the time I started writing the book. So by the time I was finished, she didn't even know who I was anymore. So that issue was taken care of, and she passed away last September. So I didn't have to worry about what would she think. So yeah, so those are some random facts about the book.
Yeah, sorry for your loss in that regard.
Yeah,
Definitely rough
thanks.
right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, well, that actually leads to the other follow-up question for those who may be writing a memoir after listening to this podcast. Any advice for those who may be getting through those moments of pain of reliving them? Any advice for them is because I'm pretty sure there may have been moments where it's like, oh God, like, oh, I remember this. Like, let me, I kind of want to forget it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess I think another important piece of advice for memoir writers is sometimes I read memoirs I think they're written way too soon after the events have taken place, especially if they're writing about trauma and, painful stuff they've gone through. And you can kind of tell that the memoir is just kind of an extension of their journals and that they were still kind of processing as they wrote. And I mean, that can work sometimes if that's what people want to read. But I think the better memoirs are written long past the time when after you've done some work on those issues. And I did a lot of grief work. I did a lot of I did a lot of work on myself and a lot of work on some of the losses and things that I discussed in the book. So long before I started writing the memoir. So I think when I was writing, I wasn't freshly processing things anymore. I had already gone through that. And so, yeah, I think that took a lot of that painful aspect out of it. And I think it also made the writing better because I wasn't emoting so much. And I think sometimes when you're writing and you're still processing things, it comes out in the way you portray other people, the way you describe, situations and what was done to you, whatever. I think if you've really processed things and you're at peace with your life, where your life has gone, your story is much. It can be just as honest, but it won't have that aura of bitterness or rancor or resentment kind of seeping through, which I kind of picked up and sometimes I pick up in some other memoirs I've read.
Ah, good deal. Good deal indeed. Well, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but this time in the current year of 2021 with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
Um, I would say, it's funny because I wrote all this without notes, but I would say take better notes. And hold on to your journals and hold on to your photos. Take photos. I don't even take photos much. Like I just kind of keep everything in here, and it's worked, I guess. But I think I would just encourage myself to just stay the path I was on and enjoy the ride. I don't have huge regrets. So
See what you did there? Enjoy the ride, Paradise Road. I see what you did there. Okay. All right. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. The mind control is working. Magical puns being dropped, y'all. That's right. That's right, indeed. So, for those who need to pick up 99 copies of Paradise Road and share it with over 1,000 people, what's the best way for folks to do so and keep up with all that the mighty Marilyn is doing?
okay, well I have a website that's very easy to find. It's marilynkriete.com, and you'll find the book there. You'll find it how to buy it, where to buy it. You can also go directly to Amazon and find it there. And I also have on Facebook. I have a group called Marilyn's Memoir Celebration, private group, but I'd love you to invite yourself to join. And I have another blog that I kind of started years ago, and I still throw things on that from time to time, called Purple Splash of Glory. So yeah, but I guess the best way is just you'll find all of that on my website, marilynkriete.com. Yeah, and buy those 99 copies. I'd super appreciate that. And please leave me reviews because reviews are so important for writers, authors, and you don't have to write, it's not a book report for school anymore. You don't have to come up with astute and profound insights about the book or analyze what the writer was trying to do. All you have to say is what you thought of the book, why you liked it, and give it some stars. So yeah, Goodreads, Amazon reviews, those are super appreciated by authors. and they do a lot to help promote a book's visibility and yeah, find more people, find more readers.
Well, there you have it, folks. Head over to MarilynKriete.com. It'll all be in the show notes as well. Buy a copy or two or 200 and share with your friends, your family, your penguin, and an apple pie. Heck, even take a selfie with the book next to an apple pie, indeed. And let them know that you're eating pie on your way to paradise on this road, indeed. And keep up with what Marilyn's doing because it's the first of four, y'all. I'm telling you, it's 4-pack ab revolution here,
Yeah, if you
y'all.
like
So definitely.
series, this is grab onto this series.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the more the merrier, as they say, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or in this case, the more the Maryland.
You are a shameless punster. Worse than my brother. My brother puns all the time.
A shameless punster. I love it.
Shameless
All right,
punster.
good. I have another title to run with now.
Keep it. It's all yours.
Good. Now my colleagues can run even further away in terror because of my nuts. This is good. This is really good. So, any parting words before we close up shop?
No, I just want to thank you for being here. It's great to hang out with you and catch your vibe. Different East Coast vibe going on there. And thanks for just letting me talk about myself and my book and wish you all the best with your podcast and keep doing what you're doing.
How's it going, my friend? I'm glad you made it to the end. That shows that you really enjoyed what you heard and you are an uncommon finisher. Thanks for giving this show a listen. If you really want to help out the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone that you care about or someone that needs to hear this message because we want to spread this podcast around like butter on bread if that's your type of thing. And if it's not your type of thing, still spread it around anyway because good stuff needs to be shared with good people like yourself.